So you're wanting to teach your GCSE students about the fact that we live in an interconnected, globalized world, but you're in the middle of a global pandemic and everybody is learning remotely from home at the moment. Well, it seems like the perfect opportunity to lean into how technology can connect us, doesn't it? Let's see how we did it. So the first step is to set up a remote survey, and I did this using Survey 123, which ties in with the ArcGIS platform and allows us then just simply to click data and for that to map into a GIS map very quickly and very simply. It's really easy to set this up. If you've done any kind of online survey, it's a very similar kind of thing, and this is the map that I got. The name, and what I wanted them to do was to go around their home and find a belonging and get a label of where it was manufactured. Then we would plot it on the map. You could take a photograph of it, repeat that a few times, and we collect some data. So the beauty of this is that as the data comes in, it begins immediately to plot live on your map, and you begin to see patterns emerging really quickly and really easily. So I then add that layer into my map in ArcGIS. I do search for layers and I'm just pulling this in from my content. It's already in here and there's the content that is there, and I'm just going to pull that content in. It's already in, and I'm able then to map this, and I'm able to share this with the students and get them to do some work. We're able to go and explore some of the patterns that are coming through and some of the interesting locations where they came from. So somebody who is from Northern Ireland but a Netherlands fan, and that came from, I think, down here in Burma, and over here we have somebody who got a top made in Bangladesh, and the students are seeing where their clothes are coming from, where their belongings come from, and able to plot them on this map really quickly and readily. Now what I can then do is to bring in one of those base maps into something like this, and I can get them to be working on some of the patterns in the surveys themselves. Now this can be done as a digital jotter, which allows me to get them in there into some different groups, and they're able then to work on describing the global patterns and seeing what begins to emerge for them and what catches their eye. I would come in here and take a look at these two boys, and we can see some of the things that they have spotted, and they're really starting to see these patterns emerging, that the manufacturing is concentrated in Asia and you've got less of it in Africa. It's exactly the pattern that we want them to get. Once they've done that, we can come back into the GIS map and we can start to link that through to some of the factors that might explain it. So if we turn this one on in particular, it's the percentage employed in manufacturing industry, and we start to see that there is definitely a correlation between the car price map and the dots. As the boys identified, there are no products in our survey anyway that came from Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa. They were concentrated here, and if you have a look at the key, it shows you that large proportion of the people here are employed in manufacturing industry. So that brings them to a very powerful question. We had already studied the effect of colonization it had on these more developing countries, and in particular how they had been set up to be exporters of primary products for the colonies, or the colonizers in Europe. That meant that when they got their independence, they didn't have a well-developed secondary or manufacturing industry base. Now, Africa was colonized, as were large parts of Asia. So here's our powerful question. What has happened in Asia over the last 30 or 40 years that hasn't happened to the same extent in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa? And that's where you can start then to look at the role and the impact that globalization has had. And we're able to go in and click on some of these countries and find out the percentage employed in secondary and how that changes over time. You can have a look at the likes of China and see what that is like. But we also come down here to the likes of Tanzania, and we can compare that and see how it changes over time. Very interesting to see that taking place? What about Mozambique? What's going on there? And they can start to really get into some of those patterns. Look at the percentages there, 2 to 8 compared to what was happening here. Now, why is it? What ways have the Asian countries been able to lean into the whole globalization process that allowed them to develop their manufacturing industry? And what's going on in sub-Saharan Africa that hasn't allowed that to the same degree? So the powerful geography that we can do, and we can go and explore all of these countries in really fine-grained detail, anything that catches our eye, we can go and explore this and see what the patterns are. And that all started from that very, very simple idea of, right, what is in your house? What are your belongings? And where have they come from? Globalization and connections made possible by the connections of technology through GIS in the midst of remote and distance learning.